Dear friends, I kindly ask you to take places. We are starting. Let me introduce you. The person who is not has no need to be introduced because you're the only one, Professor. Professor Peter Sloterdijk, and his wonderful wife, Beatrice. I welcome you here. It is very, very important for us that you come here to support our small project in Paris in 2024, which is Tales of Xenophobia. And thank you very much that you found time, and we are privileged to have you here tonight.
Thank you for your kind invitation. As you have seen, we brought some light with us from Berlin.
Exactly.
It's our first contribution to the success of this and furthermore, I came with the conviction that all of us, we share the impression that we lack of real orientation in our life world. So it's not only the general disorientation that we feel when we come to the world as newborn beings, that we have arrived at an uncanny place. The uncanny is what the French call l'étrangeté inquiétante, terme freudien, which is supposed to render the German expression Unheimlichkeit. Das Unheimliche, the uncanny, is a place where you were probably never really at home. That's the first statement we have to agree about together. So, and if we accept this, you will find it plausible if I make a small effort to tell 3 short stories, or to make 3 short distinctions, which maybe might help to get better orientation in the place where we are. My first helper from the past is the Dutch theologian and philosopher Søren Kierkegaard. He was involved around the year 1848 in a heavy conversation with a conservative Dutch priest whose name was outlined in the framework of this other controversy. He wrote a short piece, a short tractatus, which I would like to refer to and recommend to all of you to read it, let's say twice a year from now on, to reinforce the feeling of being oriented in a disoriented world. The title of this short essay is about the difference between a genius and an apostle. And I think this is a question that should be relevant to everybody who takes himself or herself for a person involved in art, because artists in our days never really know if they have understood the difference between a genius and an apostle. That's the confusion between those is one because the signatures of modern times. The genius, according to Kierkegaard, is someone who indulges in his own gifts. He has no vast purposes to fulfill. He has, maybe he has a project, but the project is nothing else but the expression of what Kierkegaard calls his humoristic self-sufficiency. The apostle, on the contrary, is someone who is just exposed to an what Kierkegaard calls an absolute teleology. He has to act according to a higher command, whereas the artist is proud to be obedient to nothing but his own inspiration. So the apostle has a strong sender behind him that who tells him what to do and especially what to say. And Kierkegaard's special problem is that Christians very often misunderstand, or do not really misunderstand, St. Paul for a genius, because a genius he was. But if we are supposed to believe him, we shall do so not because he was a man of high literary talent, as you can see in Corinthians 13 and so forth, because he had the power of authority. Kierkegaard speaks of Vollmacht. We have to believe because he has the power of authority, and this distinguishes the apostle from the genius. This is my first remark. Keep that in mind, and we'll see that things will become a little bit more complicated in the next step. Now I quote Kafka, one of the most beautiful passages of his famous remarks that have been a compilation of his sentences from his journals made by his friend Max Brod, reflections on sin, salvation and the true path. Betrachtungen über Sünde, Tod, Erlösung und den wahren Weg. They were invited to the choice to become kings or messengers. According to the nature of children, all wanted to become messengers. And now, since there are no kings, all messages are meaningless. And they're running through the world and shouting to each other their meaningless messages. And they would like to put an end to their meaningless life, but they don't dare to do so because of their oath of service. Now, the apostle is certainly a messenger who has a strong sender behind him, because in former times also messengers who had a king behind them could be highly motivated, and what Musil calls the utopia of a motivated life can be fulfilled either with a god-like sender or a king-like sender. But in Kafka's games, all had decided for Scroll as a messenger, and the place of the sender is void. And if you turn from this point of view back to the question, what can the artists do in our days? Who is sending them? They are all condemned to adopt the attitude of the genius.
Right.
Right, yeah. And we only have geniuses around us. Yeah. But you must not draw the conclusion that everybody who is not an apostle is a genius. So you have to keep in mind those sentences.
Good point.
And as as we live in a period of moral confusion, let me quote another author, way back to the 17th century, Thomas Hobbes, in one of his books on the citizen, developed the first steps towards the political psychology of mankind. And he was reflecting on the question, what to do and what will be the consequences if someone has done more damage and more injury to another person than ever can be repaired in the lifetime or at all. What will follow from this moral situation if the evildoer takes note of the fact that it will never never be possible to repair what he has done? And the formula is quite easy. If someone has done more damage to another person than can be ever repaired, the evildoer will always hate the victim. And I think without this sentence, we never understand what in our world is really happening. Because we are living in a situation where the position of victim and evildoer are systematically inverted. And this is probably the most important contribution to the general confusion. And now let me ask our basic question of what had to happen if a human being should not be able and not be condemned to feel that strange feeling and that all too well-known feeling that we call xenophobia. There's a very nice Chinese legend concerning the birth of the great sage Lao Tzu. Maybe you know the story. The most important fact in the life of Lao Tzu is that his pregnancy in his mother's womb took 81 years. So, if you can spend 81 years in your mother's womb, you will never develop xenophobia after your birth. Why? Because during your pregnancy, everything that could have happened to you in life, every kind of risk, of injury, of damage, of deception, of errors, of violence, of passion, has already been worked through inside. In the outer world, never something can happen that will surprise you. Which is, by the way, one also a European ideal, the Stoic ideal, nihil admirari, to be not surprised by anything, which was the Stoic ideal, to reach the ataraxia of the soul, that there should nothing be any more in the world that makes an impression on you. Not even an exposition on surrealist paintings, as we saw them this morning. So for a true Stoic, he has seen nothing. Just and the Stoic, the Taoist sage in the line of Lao Tzu. He would never have been astonished before any painting today in the south of Pompidou, because everything realistic and surrealistic that can happen in the position of a born human being has already been anticipated during your 81-year-long pregnancy. So, and the risk of running risk in the real world has been avoided. So might give you a hint to this special atmosphere of Far Eastern wisdom, which is very much in contrast with European ways of thinking, not only on the Chinese side, even more so on the Indian side, where the human life is utterly de-dramatized by the fact that they believe in reincarnation. So the decision character of human life becomes very, very mild in the Asian concept of reincarnation. If you miss the point this time, you might do it next time. So whenever in your lifetime you have made a rickshaw ride inside Bombay, or as it's called Mumbai today, you will see the dramatic consequences of the belief in reincarnation. Because the idea to drive carefully is completely absent. Whereas for us, we do believe that we only have one chance, and this chance is connected to all the risks that have roots in the fact of being born once and for all in this unique life, and that your life span is all you have. By the way, it's one of the reasons why the Russian cosmologists around 1900 and the immortalists, our friend Boris Groys has been talking about a lot, they declare that no revolution on Earth will ever carry real fruit unless unless the roots of inequality among men will have eradicated, and that is the private property in lifetime. And the sublation and the abolition of the private property in lifetime means that we have to develop a technique to become immortal by ourselves, and then all rivalry and jealousy will fade away automatically. And this Fedorov and his companions, they always smiled about the Russian Revolution, because they knew that they were dealing with very superficial questions. The question of mortality and immortality remains unresolved for the next centuries to come. So forget all about Lenin and his successors. Wait for the genetic engineers who will make us immortal, and who will remove all these roots of inequality and misery among human beings. And from it you see how, on an indirect way, I come to the question of xenophobia. It's a consequence of the fact that when we are born, we are put into a world where the risk of injury, the risk of damage, and so forth is the first feature that we encounter when we arrive. We come into the uncanny. We come into the world, we come into the uncanny, and we come into a place where misery is possible. And we come into a place where silence is possible, which in its own way is the precondition for music. Because only he or she who has made the experience of silence, and the silence of the outer world, will feel the need for music to replace the muscles music that we had heard for 9 months. being born means to fall into silence, because silence is a proof, like the navel on the front side of your body, that you are born and disconnected. You're disconnected from the common blood flow with the mother, disconnected from the mother's drums and voice, and the mother's soprano and another beat, and henceforth diving into the uncanny. And this is the first reaction of human being, is a more or less strong feeling of cosmophobia. Xenophobia is only the
Cosmophobia.
Cosmophobia is a
What is cosmophobia?
You know the cosmos.
Cosmos.
You are fear for.
And you're afraid to fly to cosmos or what?
You arrive in a place which is called the cosmos or the universe.
Cosmos.
And fear is a plausible response to this new situation. You see? And what we call xenophobia is only the granddaughter of cosmophobia, because in the middle there is a derived feeling from cosmophobia, which is called neophobia. You feel the fear of the new. And here you come to the xenophobic paradox. Human beings are paradox creatures. Why? Because by nature they have neophilic behavior. They love new things. They are deeply marked by curiosity, like our animal relatives. All mammals are already relatively curious. They are born as essayists. They try everything. And if they don't die from their experiments and from their essays, they survive and they learn. So do we. And in this scale, from cosmophobia to neophobia, the fear of newness, xenophobia is the last step. So the granddaughter of the original fear, it includes the presupposition that being in the world is really a huge chance to make bad experiences. For instance, that the world is populated not only by your own relatives, people of your own tribe, of your own family, but 30 miles on, there's another tribe. And you cannot assume automatically that they will be very kind with you. And the first form of foreign policy developed by human beings has been the matrimonial system. So we take our daughters and give them to the chief and the sons of the chief of the other tribe, and family building, and clan building was the first form of foreign policy. It helped us to domesticate these original fears. Now we have ministers of foreign affairs, and nobody would like to marry them. I'm already quite close to the conclusion of my reflections. When it is true that humans that are born into this world must be prepared to experience injuries and damage, they also must be prepared to be prepared, and to be prepared to be prepared is called to develop immune systems. An immune system is nothing else but an incarnated or an institutionalized expectancy of damage.
Expectness of damage or potential of damage.
Yeah, the potential is in the world. Inside yourself is the potential to cope with what happens to you. You must be prepared to be hurt, and that blood will pour out. Yeah. But your body is maybe a little bit more intelligent than you in that situation, because for millions of years, mammals have developed the capacity for the coagulation of blood, so and healing wounds by your inner pharmacy. That is the miracle of being prepared to a world where strange things happen, and which is not populated by coherently, friendly instances of encounter. You can meet injury at every corner, but you have to be prepared to survive these kind of encounters. Let's not forget that the first immune systems that the human race and human beings have developed is religion. Because religion is a symbolic immune system that helps you not to get mad at the mere idea that one day you will go to die. The religious immune system tells you will not die, you will be transformed, and maybe you will come back as your own grandfather. This is a nice idea. If the grandfather was a nice person. But all the complex of religious thinking has an implication of immunization against what CRR called in a very intelligent way l'inconvénient d'être né, the disadvantage of being born. Allow me one quotation from this book. I give it first in German because I have memorized it that way, and then I will try to translate it in Simon's French. Gesagt, mir ist zumute, als hätte ich, indem ich geboren wurde, indem ich in diese Welt kam, einen unermesslichen Fehler begangen und ein riesenhaftes Geheimnis profaniert. Doch es kommt vor, dass ich kann mir da nicht verzeihen, geboren zu sein. Doch es kommt vor, dass ich weniger schneidend empfinde. Dann denke ich, geboren zu sein, ist ein Unglück, das nicht gekannt zu haben, mich untröstlich machen würde. Ja, also wir müssen hier nach vorne par le fait de ma naissance, j'ai violé un secret très profond. Et je ne me pardonne pas d'être né. Mais parfois, il m'arrive de penser de façon un peu moins amère, dans ces moments-là, être né m'apparaît comme un malheur que de ne pas avoir connu me rendrait inconsolable. Really? In English?
Yes.
Yeah, better in English. Not for us.
Yeah. Let's try. Who can? Yeah, is a translator in the room. Now, I can try by myself. So, my feeling is that by the fact of being born, I have violated a deep secret, and I have committed an immense crime, which I cannot forgive to myself. But there are some days when I am inclined to less bitter feelings. Then it appears to me that being born is a disaster, which not to have known would make me inconsolable. I think we could stop here because there is nothing beyond the Thank you.
Can we ask some questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe ask maybe to repeat the last last quotation.
Yeah, you are already asking the question. So.
Sasha asks if you could reply your last sentence on English clearly.
There's the last quotation. Yes.
The last quotation.
Repeat.
Yeah, maybe. Yes.
Repeat.
Yes.
The last quotation.
If possible. Yes.
Yeah. In English.
In English. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. L'inconvénient d'être né est partout. Vous voyez? It's very contagious, the inconvenience of being born. Exactly, it's very contagious. Usually we never talk about it, and we do never talk about the fact that we have an ego. This is a much more secret part of the body than the genitals. The genitals are today in all showcases today. But the navel is our last secret because it is also a monument of a state of existence where we were, as it were, systematically connected to the cosmos, the motherly cosmos. And that is but that makes you feel very, very, very uncomfortable. Much more uncomfortable than the belief in God, which is also for many people something that is sagt man peinlich, penibel. What's that? Yeah, no, I repeat. I have the feeling that by the fact of being born, or having been born, I have violated a deep secret, and I have committed all-encompassing crime. Something I'm unable to forgive myself. But sometimes it happens that I feel in a less severe way. Then I have the feeling that being born is a disaster which not to have known would make me unhappy. Not only unhappy, but inconsolable, untröstlich. In English it's the same word, because in English it's a just French mal prononcé. Inconsolable. You got it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're also happy to have known this disaster.
That's true.
It's one of the most beautiful examples for the power of the conjunctive.
Power of the power of the
Conjunctive.
Conjunctive.
Subjunctive.
May I ask you, when in history the problem of xenophobia appeared? Is it known?
We do not even know when language appeared.
Really?
We do not really know what happened during the construction of the Tower of Babel.
But something.
Yeah, so the three most important parts of Genesis, so the Tanakh, are still today open to controversy because we do not really know what is meant that Adam and Eva have been expelled from paradise. What does it mean? In German Idleness around 1800, Friedrich Schiller, Immanuel Kant, and so forth, turned around the classical theological interpretation of this story. It is not a punishment. It is the first and last precondition for the self-realization of human beings. Because in paradise, you get rotten, and you will never unfold your so-called human potential. There's a heavy controversy between classical religious interpretation, punishment, and the modern humanistic interpretation, provocation to self-determination. Second question, the Tower of Babel. What does the dissipation of languages and all of these people who constructed the tower, what does it mean? Is it a punishment, or is it a necessity in order to get that wonderfully fragmented multiversum of humanity with thousands and thousands of languages and peoples and cultures? It is not very clear if it is a punishment or also a startup for people, so the startup for the creation of peoples. It's not very clear. But xenophobia can be linked to that event because one of the most frightening experiences for human being is when you encounter another human being who looks like a man, behaves like a man, who doesn't speak like a man. He speaks speaks another language. The Greek calls those who spoke another language the barbarians. Barbar. That is an onomatopoetic word which have been coined to design those who are completely unable to speak Greek. So, who are idiotic enough not to be able to speak Greek. Unbelievable, barbarian. This is one step towards xenophobia. And the most important step towards xenophobia happened probably in the moment when in the transition from nomadic life to sedentary life, humanity split up into agrarian ways of life and nomadic. The nomadic ways of life continued in a form of life designed or characterized by high mobility. And from the point of high mobility, the difference between game, Wild, also Tiere, between hunting game, hunting deer, and hunting human, disappears. And when human hunters appear on the stage of world history, shortly afterwards, the difference between master and slave arrived. And the Xenos I'm afraid of, the first Xenos, the first stranger I'm afraid of, is a manhunter who's eager to transform me into a slave. And it is a very late idea, a very fragile modernism, to invite people into xenophilic feelings, because you must be sure that those who come to us are not a manhunter, but refugees, poor people. They will not abuse of your hospitality and so forth. Yeah. And all these presuppositions are far from being evident. It takes a good deal of goodwill and humanistic idealization in order to integrate strangers and foreigners into that what we call humanity in the universalistic sense of the word. Only from the background of universalism, that is a relatively new way of thinking that arrived 2,500 years ago in Asia and in the Mediterranean countries, especially in the Eastern Mediterranean, Israel, where we maybe also in the later chapters of Egyptian culture, they also had already an ethos of hospitality. But in our days, it's xenophobic feelings are triggered by the fact that people move. In the German language, one of the most deeply tinged with xenophobia, one of these expressions deeply tinged with xenophobia is the word Völkerwanderung. You remember? Because when people move, not only one refugee comes, but people as a whole arrive. And the most unwelcome people that ever arrived on European soil were the famous Van Dalen. De là, le vandalisme. Ce vandalisme, c'est si un peuple tout entier arrive devant les murs de ta ville pour dévaster tout. Et sans demander l'asile. Et on s'empare de ce qui existe. On ne produit pas. Le pillage est plus effectif que la production. Et aujourd'hui, la xénophobie moderne s'articule le long de ce partage entre culture qui produit et culture qui est inclinée au pillage, ou à la distribution. Ouais. Je m'excuse. C'était une rechute en français. No, what I want to say is one of the lines of separation where xenophilia and xenophobia no longer go together is the question if you belong to a civilization based on the idea of production, Preis und Industrie, we say in Germany. and other cultures who think in terms of appropriation, distribution, and work-free income. So, and
I have two questions.
yeah,
Well, they're pretty much different. And the first question, so I like very much, and there's a term neophobia, which you mentioned. And so my question is, maybe it's about just more superficial matters, but you obviously are listening to the noise of time, yes, and what happened in Europe and in the world, yes, during the last, let's say, several years, like, I mean, what is happening, well, with kind of stress and in Near East, in Israel, in Ukraine, and what is happening with all this lefty ideology, which critical theory, and I think all this tension, yes, which we notice physically and politically. So, and not only me, I think there are many people are looking for the kind of explanation, and maybe my question is, maybe this kind of neophobia, I mean, this, how to say, massive phobia, massive fear, yes, can be kind of explanation for this. Because I'm thinking that maybe one of the reasons for the Nazism, let's say, was very fast development of modern after the First World War, and so which produced the same fear. I mean, it's a kind of neophobia, and maybe the Nazism was kind of reaction to this. So my question is, what is happening now for you all?
now,
Yes.
yeah.
Sorry. Well, maybe it's a general question.
Every reasonable thinker would respond in an elusive way.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And maybe I could say, I'm sorry, the line to Delphi is occupied.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. But if you are willing to accept an explanation so vast that it doesn't explain everything, I'm willing to give it to you.
Yeah.
What happened 500 years ago when Columbus discovered the so-called New World? He discovered the fact that humanity is much more complicated, much more diverse, and that the Earth is much more inhabited by unknown human beings than ever had been thought until then. The old world, so-called old world, lived in that famous three-continent regime: Europe, Asia, Africa. And there was one continent, a fantastic continent, that we suppose where the Hippobarians lived. And all of a sudden there was a fourth continent appeared, the third continent, manifest continents, Africa, Europe, Asia, and all of a sudden the fourth continent was there. This was a metaphysical shock, but we had the feeling that God will not come back as soon as we had assumed. The Christ will postpone his second coming at least for another 100 years. Otherwise, God would never have allowed the discovery of so many unchristianized people all over the world. And our mission is clear that all we have to do before the Lord is coming to give them a chance to be among the saints who march in. That's all what Moderne is all about. So the propagation of a chance for salvation. That's what the Jesuits were doing when they offered the Pope their instrumental role for propagating the true faith all over the world. By the way, the word mission dates exactly from that moment. It has been coined in the year 1540. It is not a basic lexeme, a basic term of Christian vocabulary. And that comes as a surprise, because everybody thought that even already the first apostles must have used the term mission. No. They talked about peregrinatio propter Christum, or propter Jesum, and a lot of, or evangelizare, so a lot of different terms, but the mission appeared exactly in the moment when Europeans discovered that there are too many unchristianized and non-baptized people on earth. And that's when the mission was coined. And let's go back to my question, what happened in the last 500 years? The age of the diaspora is coming to an end, because from the anthropological exodus on, not the biblical exodus, but the anthropological exodus on, when Homo sapiens modernus left Africa and populated in the course of the last 50,000 years all these continents. The ordinary human condition was dissipation. By the way, one of the reasons why the story of the Tower of Babel is so ambivalent. Dissipation was the original situation. And if they come together, it cannot be that much of an insult of God. Because God should be interested in reuniting his creatures and not tolerate the situation of dissipation. But the Jesuits in the 16th century, with the idea of mission, launched a project, and this is what you have been asking for. Our situation is we are in the middle of that inversion of the diaspora. The human race has been scattered for thousands and thousands of years, and since half a thousand of years, something is happening, what French would call rassemblement, but it's a rassemblement anthropologique. Humans on the and the rassemblement is being fulfilled in the name of the discovery of the earth. Because the earth, the globe, is becoming the most certain evidence that humans can have. So the monotheismos is our last belief. We do not know how many gods there are. Our Jews believe there are only one, and so do Muslims and Christians alike, but because a lot of Christians have an interest in annex, and they talk of the Trinitarian God. But we are living in the middle of, or in the beginnings of the inversion of the diaspora. And so, and the subject matter of world history is the general meeting. And, but we know by people and all other forms of social organization that modern societies are not able to be assembled physically in one place. And that is the deep root of our confusion. We participate in a rassemblement, in a big collection, and have no yet the proper concept to describe our discomfort in the rassemblement. Because we had been made for dissipation, and what God had divided, the humans shall not bring together. That would be one of the blasphemic interpretations of the Tower of Babel's story. What God had divided, the humans shall not bring together, shall not unite. But we are on a unification trip. We unite now. We are uniting day and night, and are complaining if the unification is too slow. A couple of days ago, in Germany, a new book appeared, Die Unvereinigten Staaten von Amerika. The disunited States of America. By the way, quoting a book by Arthur Schlesinger, written a quarter century ago, the disuniting of America, which is a very nice introduction, where he quotes from this piece of theater where the mayor of New York and the visitors are standing on a high rise looking down, and that's exactly the literary spot where the metaphor of the melting pot was coined. This is a huge melting pot.
You just maybe move the microphone a bit because maybe it's not really, not really comfortable. Just
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but I'm afraid this is going to become a boring seminar.
It's not boring at all.
And prevent you from doing reasonable things.
May I ask a last question? Nowadays, is it possible in Paris in 2024 that something like homage for Fluxus or Andy Warhol's factory could appear in Paris? Do you think it's real?
I'm not sure I really get the question. Did you?
I think it's more better. I can understand it on a metaphorical level.
Yeah, do it. And understand it metaphorically for me.
Well, I guess that Salam asked if there could be such a
Environment.
vibes of strong personalities
Yeah.
in artistic field, like it was Andy Warhol representing, or Fluxus.
Fluxus is even better.
Fluxus, but Fluxus is such a chaotic thing. I think we created backwards Fluxus.
Yeah.
You know, we just defined Fluxus. Fluxus was some kind of living organism.
Yeah.
I mean, do you believe in us, an individual representative of independent culture?
It's a better one.
All human beings are thrown into the world, as Heidegger would say, and they represent the energy that had brought them forth. In that sense, individuals are always representative. But representation is something different. If everybody is able to be a representative, there is no representation. But the representation means one can stand for thousands.
Thank you so much.
But
But what? But what?
yeah, but in the framework of this super general answer, I have tried to deliver the importance of modern art, that it sets free an enormous amount of collecting energy, but not by collectors. So the collectors are just representatives of this general process that was initiated in the 16th century, that the collection of humanity has begun, like it or not. It is under the way that you can't stop it. Okay, you can vote Rassemblement National, Front National, in order to make the greater assembly more complicated, or pour retarder le mouvement. But in the long run, art will be seen as one of the most powerful medium through which the general movement of the self-encounter of humanity happens. That seems to be absolutely clear. The irony of the term collection is so nice. The Arabs started to collect whole collections. 10 years ago, I spent a couple of weeks in Abu Dhabi, and it was quite clear to see what they do there. They assemble all our assembly techniques. They buy the library, they buy the universities, they buy the form of the museum in multiple forms, because there's not one museum, because European modernity is a whole spectrum of museological entities, and they buy the opera, they buy the theater, they buy the new and old media. So this is a very fine demonstration of the actual truth, the truth of our day. The age of meta collection is demonstrated by what rich collectors do today. And the Arabs are far ahead of other institutions. But we make a show of Chinese art here. That's the Chinese wild friend.
May I ask just one more question if somebody else wants, but after one more. So just coming back to the beginning of your lecture about we're speaking about the geniuses or apostles, yes, and about the teleology of the artist. Was the genius just have it, or maybe the artist does have this teleology, this kind of mission, yes? One of the Kabbalists, I don't remember who, I just liked this quotation, so told that the human being is a metaphor for God in some way, yes? that all of us, as a kind of a metaphor for God. I don't really understand what does it mean, but it just seems me kind of just right thing to say. And it just seems, and coming back to what you just told right now, it's about the mission of art. I mean, the mission is for collecting, yes. Because I feel, because in some way I'm an artist, yes, and when I'm just doing what I'm doing, I just feel that it's not a mission, yes, but actually there's some kind of purpose which, how to say, just mesmerized me, which just pulled me to make it. So, and then just, the system is that it's just natural for all artists because unconsciously, so they are moving for some direction, so to some direction, so they are answering some call which is calling them somewhere.
Yeah.
And the presence of this call is very important, and I'm absolutely sure that every artist just feel it. So they are not, actually, they are not blindly lost in some forest of reality, but they're trying to hear this call and to pursue it, yes. And that was a question about the theology of artists, actually, which you mentioned in the beginning. So it made it should just come back to it just shortly.
You're talking about a possible mission of art.
Inner mission, or maybe not inner, maybe.
Yeah, but the way you use the term of mission implies already something very important, that the mission in the meantime has been secularized.
Yes.
Let me tell you one step in the history of secularization of the idea of mission. Most of you will have known the name of a British colonialist politician and entrepreneur whose name was Cecil G. Rhodes. The man who, after whom the country of Rhodesia was called, and our wonderful dog still carries still carries his name, Rhodesian Retriever, one of the most beautiful races of dogs on earth. And this Cecil Rhodes had been the Prime Minister of the Cap Colony for a couple of years. Had to resign because he had supported an unsuccessful riot by British settlers against the Dutch president. And he invented a special mission. He created a foundation with a mission. He had a very nice idea. He said, it's a split of European Christendom in the 17th century, 16th century, by Protestantism, separating from the Catholic Mother Church, was a disaster. And in spite of the efforts of the Jesuits, it remained irreversible. But the separation of the United States of America from the British motherland is also a disaster, but it has not to be irreversible, because we can create on earth a new kind of ecumene, a new kind of general community, as the unity of the English-speaking people. Remember that Churchill wrote one of his most important books under this title, The History of the English-Speaking People, which is a hidden Rhodesianism from his side. Yeah. And he wanted to do the job of the Jesuits again under a secular sign, which means he wanted to reunite the English-speaking world, the colonial empire, including the United States, even if the leadership should fall to the Americans. But the unity of the English-speaking world was so important for him that he made his donation and he created a kind of sect who was in charge of this fantastic project. And the funniest thing is it worked. We will do what we do here. Had Cecil Rhodes not proven the truth of his vision. This is extremely sad, to have to talk English on. Dans la patrie d'Emmanuel Macron.
L'anglais c'est le français. L'anglais c'est le français.
English is a English is a
Vous avez raison.
How does it relate to art or artists
Let me say one thing with connection to this problem of mission. And referring to your idea that the humans as such could be a metaphor for a divine entity. The European history is deeply integrated by the idea that humans have something in common with God. And this in an independent way from religious tradition, because philosophy is also, as it were, a school of learning to become godlike. The Platonism is, as it were, so a curriculum for beginners of godliness, of course. And it is not clear if you really will get very far in the Platonic way, and that nevertheless, by the fusion of Platonism and Christianity, the thing became very serious, because in the forms of life of the monks in monastery, this was the case of emergency of becoming God by way of becoming a saint, because the saint is, as it were, a minor God, so the pre-group, before God, but now something happens very interesting, and which has an enormous importance for the history of thought. Until the 15th century, 16th century, the most rare and the most reproduced book of European culture was a book called Imitatio Christi, a compilation by a Dutch or Flemish monk. And then the imitation of God consisted in the qualification and training, the ongoing training of suffering, That means if you are godlike, you must become Christomorph. So so you must assume the shape of the Savior of Christ. And the biggest gift of Christ is his highest competence, to put in modern terms, is suffering. So passion. And all to be a Christian means to be a student of passion. And then something very strange happens in the end of the 15th and the beginnings of 16th century. The accent within the theology of Trinity shifts. It had already shifted in the High Middle Ages from the Son to the Spirit, but in the 16th century it shifts again from the Son to the Father. And the highest competence of the Father is creatorship. So, and here the deep history of art begins, because this arrogant idea of humans to share with God the capacity to do something new. That is, in the beginning, absolutely blasphemy. But in the long run, it proved to be true. And in the long run, we were obliged to reformulate the Genesis. Because what happens on earth can no longer be expressed by what is called the work of the 6 days. Since the 16th century, we all know that we live on the 8th day of creation, on the 9th day of creation, and with the artificial replication of life. We enter into the 10th day of creation, and we do not yet know how the Sabbath of this week will look like.
Nice. Thank
So
you.
I think that is maybe the closest of all possible answers to your hint to that
Yes,
parallel
I
between.
got it. So thank you very much. Yes.
Okay.
Guys, if you want some water or a glass of champagne,
Well,
welcome. You will come to